All right, guys. So this is back to Cure again, but I thought I'd show you. Eventually, I managed to get the Prusa slicer to work, and the reason I thought I'd check it out is because this particular model, the razor blade, I think the STL files, the mesh is fully meshed with the sidewalls, but I'll check this out in a minute. But let's go and look at the Prusa slicer. So the Prusa slicer, it looks very good, and it took me a while to get into it. I played with it a couple of times, but now I'm kind of getting a better feel for it. So this is the same part here for one of the wing sections, leading edge where the carbon fiber tube goes in, right? And the only thing you have to do when you import, so let's just start from scratch so you can see this in action. Let's just select the object, delete the object, all the objects, delete the objects. Right. So because 3DLabs are using sort of a composite in their STL files, the outer shells aren't a single mesh with the inner layout. So you'll see in a minute what I mean by that. Let's go for a 4. Yeah, so this is their file imported. Now, if you were to slice this, it doesn't slice properly because if you look inside, all the bits are missing. See the scaffolding, the spars effectively, they're all missing. And this is due to the nature, because in Cura, you have to go mess around with a load of mesh settings to turn all of these mesh settings called they're all hidden behind the preferences somewhere under here. I forget where they all are. I think they're under settings. I think they're under mesh. Yeah, it's these ones, special modes. All these special modes, infill mesh order. Well, actually, I think it's these ones, mesh fixes, merge mesh overlap, remove mesh intersection. Pretty certain a lot of these have to be switched off in order for you to get them to print correctly. And Prusa slicer, you can't seem to get the same settings to achieve that goal. But what you can do is you can come back to the editor view, right? And this is option here to split out the objects or split out the parts. Split out the objects. I think it's ST3 or ST. Let's have a look. ST. Maybe it's ST1. Where you click on editing, and click on um, layers and perimeters. Infill is at 0 because you want 0. Brim has been set. I'll show you where you set that in a minute. And then what you do is you set the bottom. I don't want any bottom layers and perimeters. I want a 0.25 layer height. I want perimeter of 1, and in this case I do want a top of 1. In fact, I might want a top of 2, right? And then let's give that a slice now. Now that I've split them out into objects. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. So can you see what it's done? So when you split out objects with, and I'll try it with a razor blade STL, you can now see the spars effectively inside. And so that is adhering pretty much the same setting as Cura, right? And that is exactly how I'd want it to print. And the other thing I'm going to talk about after I finish this is the efficiency of the G code, because it seems to me the Prusa slicer has very efficient G code compared to the way that Cura does it. But I need to do some tests, further tests on this to see if it's correct. And then you would send your G-code to your printer or export your G-code. So pretty straightforward. Now, under the print settings, this is where you can set your default layers and perimeters. So I've set first layer height at 0.35, slightly thicker. Layer height normally is 0.25 for thin wall printing. Well, it depends. Again, this all comes down to how granular you want the layers to be. You want chunky layers, use it thicker. You want really super thin layers, you'd have 0.1. Yeah, so I mean, that's for your layers and perimeters. Infill, I don't want any. So I've set it 0% because I'm not using infill because these 3D Labs models want thin wall with no infill. Skin and brim, I've set the brim width, so I've set um, nothing for skirt. I don't want a skirt because I'm going to use the brim. The brim provides a weld, it effectively creates a very good base for these thin walls. Whereas if I were using solid layers at the bottom, I wouldn't need a brim. Um, so I'm going to set the brim of 2 millimeters. All right. Don't need any support material. Speed I've set as 50 millimeters per second, which is in line with what Cure is using. And travel rate 130 millimeters per second, which is quite quick, but it seems to work quite well. First layer speed is 30 millimeters per second because you want to lay your initial prime, if you like, or squish onto the base plate. So you set that there. I'm not using multiple extruders. Pretty much I've left these default. I don't think I've changed any of those. Output options, I left those the same. The filament settings, I've left all of these. I think the only thing I changed was the extruder temperature 210, 210. So your first layer at 210 and your other layers at 210, and my first layer, the bed temperature 65, and the other layers 60%. In other words, they're the same. Cooling, I've turned all cooling off because we're not using cooling at all. There is a fan in the head, but it's not cool. I'm not cooling the tip of the heated element. Again, you can switch that off, and I've also turned off auto cooling, so that's off as well. I don't think I've set anything else in here that I can think of. Filament overrides, no. Custom G-code, no. I haven't set anything there. Printer settings. Yeah, there's some G-code in there. I'll leave that alone. The only other thing I think I changed was Z-hop and retract, which I think I found somewhere in amongst these settings. There is a Z-hop option. Let's have a look. Speed multipliers advanced. Somewhere in amongst the settings here, I found the Z-hop and the retraction rates are somewhere in amongst this lot of settings. Let's see if I can find the print. I would have thought machine limits. Extruder. There it is. It's here. It's under extruder 1 for the Ender Pro. All right. And I've talked about these in previous videos, but my retract is best at 6 millimeters, so it retracts 6 millimeters in the Bowden tube. I put a Z-hop lift of 0.25, and I've set retraction speed at 50 millimeters per second. An extra prime, as they call it in Cura, called extra length on restart. They call this extra prime at 0.685, and I think that's pretty much, yeah. Retract on layer change, yes. So yeah, that's pretty much it to get this to work to get it to work. You just have to split out. So you click up here, you split out to objects, you find a layer. In this case, this little box here symbolizes it's the outer shell, right? You can also look at the inner layers and you can also set the layers and parameters in there as well. So um, I'm pretty certain I leave these alone. It's just this first one really. So in fact I can come to there, delete, 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 delete. So I don't want anything for these other bits. I'm primarily interested in this outer shell for making sure that I'm going to have two top layers here in the outer shell, one perimeter, one wall thickness, the layer height of that, 0.25, and the nozzle diameter, well, that's picked up from the printer settings. And then when I go and slice that, it has got all the internal structure that I would expect to see that I get in Cura. So that's a win. It's the first time I've been able to get this to work. And in all, it really, I don't think it sports, oh it does, it sports touch, so I've got a touch screen. And that's pretty cool. You don't get that in Cura. Don't think there's any, there isn't. There is, I'm touching the screen. Yeah, it hasn't got, hasn't got pinch and zoom and rotate, and I'm using my finger. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. There's full touch integration. That actually even makes it better than Cura. So yeah, so I'm using my finger here on the screen to look through this now. I don't have to muck around with the mouse. I can just rotate, I can pinch and zoom. Yeah, that is pretty neat. So I do like the Prusa slicer, and I'm getting to learn to understand it a bit more. I've currently got a print going out at the moment. As you can see, this is this is it printing using the Prusa slicer. So we'll see how this comes out. I'll then have a look at the G code and compare the two to see what it's like in terms of overall efficiency and speed. It looks quicker. One thing I've noticed in the Prusa slicer is drawing a complete outline, and it starts the outline right at the edge, and then it does the internal spar structure. You can see it nipping around, then it does its Z hop and everything else, but it just seems more efficient. Just looks, and I need to do some further tests on this with Cura to figure out, is it worth switching to Prusa? But I'm very encouraged now that I've been able to get the internal structure to be visible for printing. It really has been worth the effort. And it's all to do with, I'm pretty certain if we come out, pretty certain it doesn't work on other models from 3DLabs, but I might be wrong because I couldn't get this to work last time. So let's try another model. So rather than the razor blade, let's go up. Let's go to Cura. It's going to say the and it's got to say the wings on the Joker. All right, you see how elaborate that is. So let's see if this is actually going to work. Oops, sorry, Control Z. Right, so I'm going to pinch and zoom. Yeah, I think I need to rotate that. All right, oh, right. Let's grab the red. Oops, Control Z. Grab the blue. So I need to grab the blue. That's vertical. So I'm just trying to figure out, oh, there you go. I need to grab that. There you go. That turned green now, so it will fit onto the bed. Go back to normal positioning. Go back to the layout. Right. Now then, it says, you see, it's got auto repaired to errors. but I'm not so sure that's going to slice with the internal structure. Let's give it a go. Here we go. Yeah, see it's missing? Well, oh, I don't know though. Yeah, it is. It's missing. The internal structure is kind of not there. The full internal structure isn't there. Pretty certain that's... Might be wrong. Might be wrong. Because I can't see the spars. I don't think the spars are in there. Might be. So let's see, we play the same trick. Let's come back to here, split out the objects, and the one I want is probably this last one here, 34. Not sure. And then I want to go for layers and perimeters. So I don't want perimeter of one, top of one. I don't want a top. Actually, I might want a top. Well, you'll see why in a minute. Perimeter 0.25, bottom of 3. So let's slice that now. Right, let's see what it's done. It doesn't look to me, all the spars are missing. See what I mean? So, and I think that's the way that this thing, the entire thing is structured. The way it's structured. So, yeah, pretty certain that has not got all the layers, all the integral components inside. I'll have some more experimentation, but maybe it is. I can see something going on in there, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, actually, no, it might well have it. Yeah, may well have it. I'd have to do a test print on a smaller wing section to see if it works. But that is the trick. You basically have to split out, find the outer shell, and then split out the objects, and then set. Obviously, you don't want any infill, but you do want to set your layer and perimeter settings. And here, this is where you can specify if you want infill, depending on which section you're on, the layers, support material, and everything else. All right. So it's not a bad little slicer. You might need to experiment with it to get good results. Cure, on the other hand, I've kind of learnt to know it, but I'm starting to get a feel for the Prusa slicer. It looks pretty good once you understand how to get the 3DLabs stuff to work. But they're a bit more complex. Like this particular wing, you can see really, if I tilt that, zoom in here, there's big gaps here, look, yeah? And to get this to fill in, you have to mess around, because it's a complex part, this wing, because it has a big area here. And I think you have to beef up your top layers to something like 2. Perimeters of 1. Bottom we can leave at 3. Let's try that. Whereas in Cura, I've pretty much got this filled in now by using adaptive layering and top layer. Yeah, you see it's not filling in correctly. So still work to be done, I would say. But yeah, slicers. Love them, hate them. No single one of them with the 3DLabs stuff. The only thing I would say is Cura still seems to be the best. But you can kind of get the Prusa slicer to work. All right, thanks for listening.